Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Public Sector Catering Mental Health and Resilience webinar sponsored by Pladis. Your agenda for today is we will have a presentation from Elbha Purcell from Aramark, followed by some words from Sandra Kelly at People First, then Mark Lewis from Hospitality Action, and finally Lisa Warner from Pladis. We'll then have a Q&A at the end of that. Whilst we wait for people to log on, however, we will play a short video for you.
We're here today at HRC with Pladis, asking people to open up about their mental health. It's really important that people can start a conversation and that people receiving a conversation are able to listen and say the right things. It's going to be a great day.
I think if you start the day happy, you continue happy, you work safer, better environment for everybody, start the day with a smile on your face, you're going to continue it and leave happy.
We're working long hours under a lot of pressure, and sometimes we forget about we're looking after all the guests, looking after everybody else, and sometimes we forget about looking after ourselves. So we really use a buddy-buddy system. Important to look after your buddy, your mate, your mentor, mentee, the idea of working together to make sure that everybody's looking after each other.
Good morning, Pladis people. It's Peter McGrath here from Meals and More. I just want to thank you so much for your support this year. We support over 220 holiday clubs and 10,000 children. This year has been especially challenging for so many because of COVID. And when I first spoke to Lisa and Charlotte, when I reached out for support, they really got what we were trying to do. So engaged and so helpful.
Next March, Springboard will give recognition to individuals and businesses in the hospitality industry who've gone above and beyond to help their communities, colleagues and staff. Our virtual awards will replace the usual Springboard Awards for Excellence, and new categories have been introduced to pay homage to the special efforts of our industry in 2020. Pladis are a proud sponsor of the Best Health and Wellbeing Awards. This award celebrates success in demonstrating a commitment to employee health and wellbeing. There's never been a more important time to nurture your staff than the challenging period we currently find ourselves in.
Thank you to the team at Pladis for everything you've done for your campaign, Happiness with Every Bite. Our customers in care homes and your support with Napa and the work you're doing with Education for a Springboard are all quite outstanding. Keep up the good work and everybody can enjoy eating far more of your wonderful biscuits. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I will now pass over to David Fode, who will be today's chair.
David, you need to unmute yourself.
Right, good morning, everyone. I believe that for the last few seconds you've been watching me mouth moving but no sound. So hopefully we've rectified that situation now. Yeah, I'm David Fode, editor of Public Sector Catering magazine. And thank you very much for joining us today for our webinar on mental health and resilience. The reason we're here today is that our mental health is an issue that probably has been ignored for too long, despite the obvious cost to individuals, to families and to businesses as well. We have with us today a panel who are packed with experience and insight, and they'll be looking to give you a bit of an idea about some of the work that they're doing on mental health, and then taking on your questions. First of all, we have Elbha Purcell, Head of Dietetics and Wellness at Aramark. who will give us an insight into how a large business supports its staff, and in particular their Take 15 campaign. So good morning, Elbha.
Good morning, David. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. We also have Sandra Kelly, UK Director of People First, to tell us about their work supporting the industry during the pandemic and as we emerge from it. So good morning, Sandra.
Good morning, David.
Okay. We also have Mark Lewis, Chief Executive at Hospitality Action, to give us an overview of the charity's work and how they support the people working in it, and just as importantly, how we can support them. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, David. Thanks for having me this morning.
And finally, we also have Lisa Warner, Head of Foodservice at Pladis Global, whose video you will have just seen, that takes a look at some of the work that they're doing on mental health initiatives to support the industry.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning. I think we're all sort of becoming familiar with webinars and the ground rules that they have. So I will just very briefly run through the way that this is going to work today. Other than the panelists and me, everyone will be muted. To put a question, you've got a choice. You can put a question directly to the panelists through the Q&A function. Make sure you include your name and company, and please keep it to questions rather than statements and comments. And remember, you can post a comment at any time, you know, from now right till the very end. We'll pick up and do as many as we can. The other way to stay in touch is to share a comment. And we encourage you to do this too. For that, you use the chat function, and remember to choose the option to all panelists and attendees so we can all see it. We won't unfortunately be able to answer any questions you put in the chat function, so please try and remember the distinction between the two. Right, let's get on with the panel themselves, and we're going to start now with Elbha.
Great, thank you, David, and thanks for having us on today. It's great to be able to share and listen to what others are doing in this space. I'm going to hopefully share my screen without any issues. Can you see that? Great.
Yes.
Okay, so as David's already introduced me, my name is Elbha, and I head up the Dietetics and Wellbeing team for Aramark Northern Europe. For those of you who don't know us, Aramark is a leading service provider on behalf of clients across the EMEA region. We have clients in education, in healthcare, in business and industry, in public sector, in the military and the NHS. And we have 16,000 employees across our Northern European region. So I was planning to start today with some stats, but I firmly believe that we don't know the full impact of COVID on our mental health, and we won't know it for many years to come. So instead, what I tried to do is create a cumulative list of the multitude of stress factors that we have faced in the past 9 months. It's not an easy read, and I don't think I've captured everything. But based on that, and it's my belief that the World Health Organization pre-pandemic stat that 1 in 4 of us is affected by mental health in any one year is trending towards 1 in 1. I think it's going to be very hard to find somebody out there that hasn't been affected in some way by what we have experienced in this past year. And based on that, there's a huge onus on our businesses and our employers to make sure that we are looking after our staff and employees. So from an Aramark perspective, our mental health approach has been evolving for the last 5 years, and we're basing it very much around wellness programs around the individual. And we've created 4 pillars or guiding principles that we work towards. The first of which is to be authentic. So what I mean by that is we want to ensure that we're leading from the top down. We want whole company buy-in. We want to be clear with our communications, and we have to be adaptable in this space. So we have to create supports and tools that are appropriate for staff and employees that are working on the front line, those that are working from home, and also those that have been furloughed. We want to be aware. So again, that's using empathy. We want to make sure that we are understanding the concerns and anxieties that are out there among our employees. We want to be consistent. So again, anything that we are developing, we don't want it to just be for the period of these 9 months or just to coincide with World Mental Health Day that falls every October. These tools and strategies have to be available and easily accessible to all our employees all the year through. And then the onus is on us is to continually review and improve. So what I mean by that is review, obtain feedback, learn and improve and evolve in this space. So what did we do this year? So we definitely doubled the efforts of our mental health strategy group, and our mental health strategy group is a full company buy-in. So we have members from our L&D, our Learning and Development Department, from HR, from Communications, and from Health and Wellbeing, including exec sponsors. So one of which is our MD. Of the UK business. And I think that's important that we have that buy-in to make sure this approach reaches everyone throughout the company. And one of our first focuses was to create a platform to communicate with all our employees. So it's 16,000 employees. We didn't have, they don't all have an email address. So how do we get these guides, these tools and the supports out to them? So what we did is we created digital wellness guides and newsletters that can be accessed via a web link. And this web link is, once you have 4G or Wi-Fi, anybody could access the detail. And we asked our operations team to cascade this web link down through the teams so that everybody had this access. And what is our wellness guides? This is where we collated a lot of information from support strategies from those working on the front line to those working at home to try and achieve that work-life balance, mental health supports, webinars, resilience-based webinars, some nutrition and activity tips, our details around our employee assistance program. And what we did is we regionalized these guides so that the support numbers and tools were applicable to our employees in our different regions throughout Northern Europe. The next thing we did was our employee wellbeing surveys. I think that these cannot be underestimated. We released one in May to see how everybody was coping, to understand if the tools we had in place were fit for purpose, and what else we needed to do in this space. And we currently have an end of year one that was launched this week. And we want to finish the year understanding, how our employees are feeling, what we need to develop to support them coming into the new year. So that's currently underway. One of the other things we looked at was a coffee playbook. So basically this was created to try and address the issues around social isolation and loneliness. And what the playbook is simply like an operator's tool or guide is how to set the scene for this coffee break to take place. I think what we realized is, and this is more maybe at the start of the pandemic, but a lot of people weren't comfortable in this virtual space, and weren't relaxed, and not everybody engaged with it. So what we wanted to do is create a kind of a fun playbook, if you like. So where the managers, we provided them with icebreakers, with quizzes, with even baking contests. So just ideas that everybody could engage with, and our ask was that each manager reached out to their team at a minimum once or twice a month, just to catch up and see how they were doing. Our walk for wellness, this was just a bit of a fun element that we threw in. We did launch it to coincide with Mental Health Week UK. And this was literally a step challenge. And we asked our employees to, record their steps when they're out for their walk with their family, with their pets. And we had fantastic buy-in. Our goal was to walk the breadth of Europe within a week. And we ended up heading all the way to Hawaii. And being the summer, we thought we'd just stay there. But what we achieved in that was 29 million steps. So we had huge buy-in from our employees. We got pictures in and whatever. So it was just a really nice, simple way for people just to get on board and connect with each other. The next thing, and these aren't obviously in order of priority, we wanted to launch our mental health champions. So these are Aramark employees who have an interest in this mental health space, and we put them through a number of webinars and e-learning courses and workshops, and they're there to support, to listen, and to signpost any of our employees or staff that reach out to them to the appropriate supports that are available. And finally, we have our Take 15 mental health toolkit, which I'll go into a little more detail in the next slide. So what is Take 15? So Take 15 is Aramark's annual mental health campaign. It's 5 years running now, and I'm very proud to say I think it's one of our most successful campaigns that we have run to date. I think the success is very much linked to the simplicity of the message, and the message is asking everyone, our clients, our customers, our staff, to take time away from their work or their study environment, and just to unwind and relax. So you know that these booster breaks, there's lots of research out there showing how effective they can be, but you know, whether they're 5, 10 or 15 minutes in length, just taking that time away to connect with a colleague, to have a cup of tea, to go for a walk, has all been shown to be effective for reducing stress levels. And the other piece at Take 15, and the important message we're trying to get out there to all our own employees, is that it's, you know, is that behavior change around mental health. We want to use that break time so that encourage people to talk and discuss their feelings, and to make sure that everybody knows that it's okay not to be okay. And what we do is every year we relaunch the campaign to coincide with World Mental Health Day, which takes place on the 10th of October. And each year we try to theme it up slightly differently. And our focus this year was to create a mental health toolbox. So what we wanted to do here was, again, create something that was practical and that everybody could engage with, regardless of where they were, working or not working. And so what we created was a video, and we followed it up with a newsletter. So we focused on 4 key areas that are very well known and associated with mental health. So we focused in on mindful eating, physical activity, sleep, and relaxation. And we followed up the video with, within our newsletter, we had some healthy recipes, some great videos from our chefs. We had a sleep guide, we had some exercise ideas, and we also had some simple relaxation exercises. And that's a collation of what, you know, all the fabulous tools that are out there, from breathing exercises to mindfulness coloring. So we created them all in the toolkit, and shared them out with our team and employees. So I guess finally for me, the takeaway message, you know, and kind of some of the learnings that we have particularly had this year, is very much focused on not overloading our employees with resource. And I think, I know we're certainly guilty at the start of this, and people were inundated with emails. So it's making sure that what we communicate it regularly, honestly, but concisely, and we use different forms of media to do that, whether it's a video or a newsletter or the occasional email. I think it's very important to create a space for social connection. So with the coffee playbook or even the walk for wellness, you know, where people can talk and interact and engage with each other, which, as we know, is harder in this past year. So I think as much as you can support that, that is great. Finally, you know, understand we don't always need to reinvent the wheel. There are some amazing tools and supports out there. So I definitely used a lot of Mental Health UK and the NHS. There's some great stuff there that we used in our guides and our newsletters. And the final piece for me was to create a platform to safely and freely discuss mental health issues. So we're trying to do that with our Take 15 campaign, and also with our mental health champions. So that's it from me.
Okay, Elva, that's terrific. Thank you very much for that. Very interesting. We're now going to turn to Sandra Kelly at People First, who's going to tell us a little bit about some of the work that they've been doing, and perhaps some of Sandra's own thoughts on this particular issue. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, David. Thanks, David. So I'm the UK Director at People First International. We operate in the UK. We also operate across 40 countries worldwide. Our heritage has been as a Sector Skills Council. So our focus clearly is on skills, and it's on standards, and it's on occupational standards through apprenticeships and professions. Our focus has been not just on hospitality, but also retail, travel and aviation. We are an employer-led organisation, and we work with some key individuals and key brands, some of which I'll just share with you now. So some of the employers around our tables are British Airways, TUI, EasyJet, Hayes Travel, Tesco, Lidl, Iceland, ASOS, Menzies, Harrison Catering, Compass, Juries, Mitchells and Butler, Green King, Fuller's, Marks and Spencer's, Superdrug, John Lewis, Co-op. Now you'll see from that list that they've all been in the news over the last year or so. And that's because these industries have been absolutely decimated by what's been happening. And critically, they have been affected by the priorities that they've been working on. So what we normally do with our employers is we look at the skills infrastructure that's needed across those 4 areas: hospitality, travel, retail and aviation. And our employers talked to us in March and said, creating apprenticeship standards and looking at the skills structures, not a priority for us right now. You know, we're in industries that have been severely hit by what is happening, and we need to do something differently to support our members and our employees. And we knew that we were ideally placed, because of our heritage and skills, to think about what some of the values were and some of the transferable skills were for people who had been made redundant or people who were facing redundancy, of which there's been hundreds and thousands across our industries. We have a sister organisation, Skills for Health, and also Skills for Justice. So we started talking really to the health and social care organisations. And we realised that whilst they had been significantly impacted also by COVID, their impact was around a shortage of skills, a shortage of people to fill the skills. Well, anybody who's worked in hospitality knows we've got great people who work here and great people with great capabilities. But very often those individuals may well not have achieved qualifications or assessment of their competences that actually would meet the level, you know, the number of years that they may well have worked in our industry. And if those individuals had found themselves temporarily or permanently out of work, they were finding it increasingly difficult to present themselves in a way that created the absolute true value. I'll give you a story of a guy called Jason. He was self-employed in the travel industry. He spoke 3 languages. He was a tour guide, but he had no qualifications, and his CV, as it stood, wasn't impressive enough for him to be able to secure an interview. But this guy, Jason, was absolutely self-motivated. He was confident, he was driven, he had excellent communication skills. He was resilient, he was calm, he could think on his feet, he could engage with people, he was a real people person. He was very caring, but he wasn't, you know, authoritative. He had great attention to detail and his timekeeping was amazing. But this was not what his CV looked like. This was not how he presented himself. He came to us and we had a conversation with Jason and we repositioned him. And very quickly he could see that there were opportunities for him. So a busy GP practice in central London as a receptionist was an absolutely perfect place for him to go. But he never would have considered it. And the people working in health and social care wouldn't have considered his CV either, you know, having not had anything on the CV that would represent himself in that way. So our capability to translate an individual and to match them into a different opportunity has been something that we've focused on for the first time since March. We understand that there are emerging skills and capabilities that are really, really important. You know, what we've seen over the last few months is a real focus on resilience. Now, how do you present yourself as being a resilient person? Being resilient is your capability to recover quickly from a situation you found yourself in, to spring back into shape, to have the self-awareness to check that you've recovered and to assess any damage that you might have experienced, and then to adapt. And being resilient is an emerging capability and skill that's really valuable. having agility, so being able to move quickly and easily, to think and to understand quickly, and again to have the self-awareness and the confidence and the capability and the courage to act decisively is a really huge emerging capability, not just at leadership level or management level, but for everybody. But there are some other things that are emerging as really critical. Communication. Everybody would say that they were good at communication. It's what we do to convey information verbally or in writing. But actually conveying information effectively is a really important skill. To be accurate, concise, easy to understand, definitive and structured, to communicate with a purpose is a really huge, important value. When you're communicating effectively, you want to inspire confidence, you want to create trust, you want somebody perhaps to complete an action. But what you're doing is you are conveying information to a whole range of audiences. If you work in hospitality, you do this completely naturally, and maybe you don't know the value or the key value behind this. It's really important to take another look at yourself and to think, well, I've got some tremendously important values. And people want to know, how do you get things done? You know, what are your intrinsic motivators? Where does your energy lie? How do you get your satisfaction? What is it you're doing when you're putting in that extra effort and you've got that huge desire to contribute? You know, these are the qualities that if you find yourself temporarily or permanently displaced for an employment that you normally do, then have the courage to think about yourself in a different way. There's changing mindsets too, changing mindsets of people who are looking to employ people. Total Jobs surveyed over 5,000 people in April, and surprisingly or not, 51% of people who had found themselves out of work and who had brushed themselves down and stood up and were ready to look for a new job, 51% said it was important to them to learn new life skills. 43% said that the impact of finding themselves in that situation meant that work-life balance was incredibly important to them. 37% said that they wanted more learning and development in the workplace. Now that's interesting also because the World Economic Forum released a report, the Jobs Reset Report, in November, and it said that the amount of jobs that have been displaced is significant globally, 85 million jobs or so. But actually, despite COVID, automation and recession were going to be driving, you know, different behaviours and a different workplace in the future. By 2025, the amount of people doing a job, the human job, will equal the amount of people doing the machines. So actually, we all need to think differently. We need to understand that whilst we've been affected through, you know, the experiences that we've all had, it's really important that we think about being resilient for the future. The World Economic Forum was really clear in saying that actually COVID had made something very obvious, that social contracts with the workforce had been broken in lots of places. And actually 40% of core skills of any job are going to change. In 5 years' time, 50% of anything that we're doing now at work will be completely different. And new skills will be emerging, not just the skills I've described in resilience and agility, things around stress tolerance, flexibility, active learning. And active learning is really important because 91% of business leaders expect employees to pick up new skills on the job. And that is a big and a significant change from how we have organised ourselves as an industry and organised ourselves as employers previously. So if the onus is going to be much more on the individual, then there's one thing that we need to do as organisations in our industry. We need to reset the button. We need to professionalise our industry. We need to understand what our new talent pipeline needs to be. And we need to be really strong and clear about it. We are a brilliant industry to work in, which is highly attractive. We need to put a real drive on retention and a real drive on progression so that we can help people be skilled in a way that they will be now, that will give them the capability to be relevant in the future. It's a really important and enormously telling time for us. And I think moving forward, we've all got a huge opportunity here to reset the button and be productive and inclusive in the way that we do so. Thank you, David.
All right, Sandra, thank you very much for that. Very, very detailed look at where we are now and maybe what we need to be doing more of in the future. Thank you for that. And now I'd like to turn to Mark Lewis from Hospitality Action. Mark?
David, good morning. You can hear me, yes?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, David, thank you very much for giving me this chance to bring our lovely charity Hospitality to life for the attendees on this morning's seminar. It's a charity we're all very proud of, so I'm glad of any opportunity to describe it to people. Also a good chance to describe our efforts to support the industry's mental wellness, which, as we all know, has been never more important in the last 9 months or so. Perhaps I can start with an elevator pitch with a little background to Hospitality Action. I would like to think people watching this morning are aware of us, but just in case, Hospitality Action is UK hospitality's benevolent charity. We offer lifelines to people who work or have worked in the industry and find themselves in difficulty or crisis. We cover hospitality, catering, food service. We help chefs, restaurateurs, hoteliers and bar staff and food service workers. We work with people from 5-star hotels to chains like Premier Inn and Travelodge. We work with 3 Michelin-starred restaurateurs, casual dining outlets, and of course the public sector as well. Since 1837, we've been the industry's safety net. In short, we're here to catch people when they fall. Successful hospitality businesses are, as we all know, built on happy, healthy and productive teams. And I guess at HA, it's our job to keep people happy, healthy and productive. Hospitality people are experts at delighting their customers and their guests. But of course, behind their smiles and behind their game faces, they're all just as prone to life's challenges as we all are. And that's where HA comes in. We put lives back on track. We help people with all of the issues that might affect the human condition. We help people through physical and mental health issues around poverty, addiction and dependency, relationship breakdown, domestic abuse, bereavement, you name it, whatever the issue is that people face in the course of their lives, we'll be helping somebody typically in a calendar year with that issue. But I guess it's important to say that mental wellness tends to be the common denominator of pretty much all that we do. Whatever the issue is that you're facing, you can be sure that there's a mental health element to it. A life-changing medical condition is, of course, a physical challenge, but of course it brings with it anxiety, concern about the future, anxiety about how you'll cope financially in the future. So as well as helping people with a physical health condition, we're of course mindful of the fact that there's a mental side to that as well. Poverty, of course, brings with it the anxiety of not knowing how you're going to pay the bills next month. So again, there's a mental aspect to a physical problem. Domestic abuse is another example where it's a physical issue, sadly, for some people, but also it comes with huge mental stress. So important to say that as well as the physical toll that the issues that our beneficiaries present to us, there's always a mental aspect. Given that fact, we track closely the mental wellness of the industry that we serve. 2 years ago, we did a major mental health survey, and earlier this year, we thought it would be a useful idea to return to it and compare and contrast how things have moved on since 2 years ago. As you can imagine, COVID was the defining aspect of the results of the research, and so you won't be surprised to hear that mental wellness was not strong amongst the respondents to our research. A few figures to provide: only 38% of respondents said they feel positive about their future in hospitality, given all that's going on. Over 60% reported feeling worried or stressed about the future. over 90%, excuse me, over 90% said their job was sometimes, often, or always stressful, and that's a really scary statistic. More than a quarter of respondents described stress as part and parcel of their job, and 68% said stress levels had increased in their organisation over the past 3 years. I'm not sure whether that would have been a better statistic if we'd asked people in January or February, but clearly since March the world has turned on its head, and that's had a detrimental effect on the mental wellness of people around the industry. There were some green shoots in the research. 3/4 of the respondents said they felt their mental health and well-being was a priority in the business they work for, up from 2 years ago. Moreover, the number of people who said they feel supported by their employer had risen to 38% from 29% in 2018. 80% of those questions said they knew the signs to look out for, that a colleague may be experiencing poor mental health. And I think that's a really important point. I think it's fantastic that companies are doing more to support the well-being, the mental well-being of their employees. But I think we all need to look to ourselves and our friends and colleagues and peers and do what we can as well to look out for issues and help support people with wellness problems. 75% said they felt their mental well-being was a priority in the business, some or all of the time. And one final stat, 75% again also said that they would be comfortable having a conversation about mental wellness with a colleague. So I think we're seeing that that mental wellness is being spoken about and addressed more than previously, but notwithstanding all that, there's no doubt that this year's pandemic has put a huge psychological strain on people working in the sector. So I'd like to tell you just a little bit about what Hospitality Action has done to support the industry since the first lockdown at the end of March. And as I said before, it's worth mentioning that all of our interventions can be viewed through the lens of a mental health challenge. So first, I think back in March, we realized very quickly that whatever course the pandemic, the virus took, a lot of people were going to be losing jobs or hours pretty quickly. So we quickly put in place an emergency appeal, and we were bowled over by the response we had from the industry, from its suppliers, from its associations, and from the general public, all of whom I think realized how much they love and miss hospitality in all its guises. So the emergency appeal brought in a lot of money, and that enabled us to start giving out grants of between £250 and £750 to hospitality households in financial crisis. We can't help all the people, we wish we could, but we'd rather help some than none at all. And we can't help people on an ongoing basis, but the plan was always to help people at that first point of emergency when the financial problem was really acute, while they waited for universal credit to kick in. If I tell you that on that first Monday, or the last Monday in March, when we first opened for applications for our emergency grant, we had 21,000 applications. That gives you a sense of the scale of what we were facing. By the end of September, we'd awarded 2,450 COVID-19 grants of between £250 and £750, and we continue to award grants. As I said before, we can't solve people's financial problems, but we can help ease worries. Second, we recognised that the pandemic was taking a huge toll on the industry's mental health. It's created a toxic cocktail of challenges to mental wellness, anxiety about jobs and future, grief at the loss of jobs, the loss of businesses, and the loss potentially of careers. There was a loss of purpose and a loss of self. I think a lot of people working in hospitality are very much defined by their role. Hospitality and food service is a vocation, not just a job. And I think people really missed being out and about and working, meeting customers and guests and meeting their friends and colleagues. There was guilt as well for having to furlough and lay off employees and colleagues. We heard that presented to us a lot. And I think there was a strain on relationships because people who were used to working hard, often long hours, suddenly found themselves at home, and that created strains on relationships. Our response, and I should say thanks to Lisa at Pladis, to the Savoy Educational Trust, to Compass Group UK, and to Unilever Fair Kitchens for their support, was to set up a wellbeing hub on our website. We created fact sheets and guidance on issues like virus anxiety, coping with uncertainty, anger management, suicidal thoughts. Also created some really strong videos, which I'd suggest people have a look at. Third, and briefly, we run an outreach program called Golden Friends, which keeps loneliness and isolation at bay for thousands of industry retirees. And I'm pleased to say that we had hundreds of people step forward from the industry to support at this outreach program. This army of volunteers allowed us to keep in touch with the elderly people around the industry and make sure that they were in as good shape as could be given the times. And finally, we continue to offer our employee assistance program, which is a way for operators to invest in their team's well-being, morale, and performance. We know that personal and health issues have a major impact on the way people work in the workplace. That can lead to reduced performance, lack of focus and absence, and that in turn leads to lost productivity and significant costs to employers. So we're proud that we've been able to keep the employee assistance going through these difficult 9 months and offer a whole suite of benefits to participating employers. Conscious of time, so I'll rattle on, but David did ask me to touch on how people can help us. Firstly, please tell your teams that we exist. We're here to help people working around hospitality and food service, but we can only do so if they reach out. So please do spread the word about us and do signpost our wellbeing hub. Secondly, consider volunteering. As I said, we have an army of volunteers, but we always need more people to help us reach out to the people that we support. Thirdly, please do shout if you'd like to hear more about our employee assistance program, which is a paid-for service, but as I said, a way that employers can invest in the well-being of their employees. And finally, please do consider fundraising. We need money to help other people. We've seen huge generosity so far, but we need to keep on banging the drum. Fundraising is the bread and butter for us of all that we do. Our big fundraising campaign at the moment is invisible chips. We're asking operators to put invisible chips on their menus. It's really a way of people donating by buying something and changing everything for hospitality households, 0% fat, 100% charity. It's a light-hearted touch, but it's a way of making money for us and allowing us to help more people.
All right, Mark, thank you very much. It was indeed, and you very nimbly jumped in there and actually answered one of the questions that's come up already about how people can help Hospitality Action. I think you've done a very good job of explaining some of the practical ways that people can do that. I guess what we do want to do is to make this as practical as possible for people. And one of the things that maybe we should be thinking about, what are the sort of the warning signs, if you like, that there could be, someone could be having some sort of mental health issues because they don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about it. And I wonder, Elbha, if your experience over the last few years has given you any sort of insight into what practically as employers and colleagues we can do to sort of look out for things that might be amiss and give us a clue that someone could be having problems.
Yeah, no, I'll do my best to answer that, David. I think, we have to obviously understand our role as well. We're there to support and guide, but we're not professionals in this space. Stress and anxiety, the symptoms and how it is expressed in different people. The variety of symptoms are quite. They're very varied in the symptoms. So whether somebody is overwhelmed, can't focus on what they're doing, inability to hold a conversation, coming in late to work, looking disheveled, there's a variety of ways where that you can be looking out for. I think we can all be very focused on in our own lives, but it is important just to reach out. It is important to let people know, particularly on your own teams, that I'm here. I'm always ready to have a call and to listen. But also that you have to understand where the line is in the sand, and you can provide a certain amount of support, but then when you have to guide them to the actual professional help, and that's what we're very much concentrating on with our mental health champions. We're bringing them in at a time when the business need them more than ever, but we don't want them inundated and push past what their area of expertise is. They haven't gone to university, you know, they don't have a degree behind them in psychology. So what we want to do is give them the tools to listen. And I think listen is a key tool here. And certainly this morning, the Harvard Business Review, it was very much talking about, you know, listening, suspend judgment, and then see if you can help direct them towards the supports that you have available within the business, and if further help is needed, is to give them the guidance of how to seek that.
Okay, thank you. Sandra, perhaps I can turn to you. You talked about resilience and retraining and skills, and I suppose in some ways these are a way of almost prevention rather than cure in terms of some of the mental health issues we're talking about here. Could you just tell us a little bit more about how we can look at the element of resilience so that we perhaps stop the problem before it becomes a problem?
Yeah, that's a really good observation. There's a lady called Dr. Dalton Smith, and what she has done in her research is she's identified 7 types of rest that we all require. And she's really clear in saying that one size doesn't fit all when it comes to rest. Everything we do draws from a different pool of energy. So she's talking about the best rest occurs when we revive the specific kinds of energy that we regularly deplete. And I think this is important because when you're rested, then you are much more resilient mentally. So the 7 types are, and again, this is where you get your energy from, it's being creative. So, you know, what is it that you do that inspires and motivates you? And also being aware of your mental state. So how to quieten your mind and focus on things that are really important. She talks about the physical side. So the rest, relieves your body of muscle aches and tensions and improves your sleep. And she talks about social, so how you spend your time on relationships that are important to you and the people that are in your life that actually enhance your life, that make your life better. And then she talks about the emotional state, your own ability to express your deepest feelings and to be your genuine self. And then the last 2 around sensory, so to give yourself the respite from the background noise, you know, the noise in your head that can sometimes be very unhelpful, you know, the negative self-talk. And then lastly, the spiritual. It's really important, she says in her research, to feel that you're part of something bigger, as well as having a sense of belonging, that you fit in. And if you've got a deficit in any of those 7, areas, then it's really important for you to identify that and actually to build yourself back up again. And that is a way to make yourself resilient. It's huge, great self-awareness and honesty.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Mark, you wanted to come in on that point?
Yeah, I just saw a comment from Chris O'Neill on the chat. Thank you, Chris. And Chris is quite right. It's one thing it's one thing recognizing that there is a mental health problem around the industry and around society. The next step is to find positive ways of dealing with it. And I think resilience is absolutely key. It's about giving people ways of coping with mental health challenges, but I think also it's about normalizing conversations. And I know this has been said a million times, but the fact we're all talking about mental wellness shows that it's not happening yet. But we need to give people the space, the permission to talk frankly and honestly about their challenges. And I think part of that is about looking behind what's presented to you. If you run a kitchen and you see a chef coming in regularly, looking bleary-eyed and tired, coming in late, being a bit grumpy and grouchy and falling out with other employees, you could either think, God, he's a pain, he's making life difficult. Or you can actually think, well, I wonder what the root cause is. I wonder why he's presenting all these issues. Maybe it's that there's something going on. So therefore, it's about saying, listen, let's have a chat. Is there anything you want to talk to me about? And if I could just flag up one organization that I come across recently, it's a website called Talk Club, and their whole raison d'etre is about getting people to talk about how to feel out of 10. So we all know when somebody says, how are you? We all say, yeah, fine, not bad, thanks. But actually they say, okay, how do you feel out of 10? And if the answer is 4 out of 10, that elicits a further conversation. Okay, 4 ain't great. So what can we do to make that 6 or 7? So I think it's about normalizing these conversations and creating an environment where people feel they can speak honestly about their mental health.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, can I turn to you? Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about what Pladis are doing to support mental health, I mean, within the company, but also externally as well, in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting listening to Sandra about where we get our energy, and that's something that we as a team are really focused on in terms of how we improve our mental well-being and how we get our energy is by supporting the industry and coming up with activities that are going to bring some happiness and joy. If I give you an example of the recent activity we've done with care homes, we provided activity booklets and care homes decorated biscuits, and the winning care home created an enormous table of a garden made out of biscuits, and it brought lots of happiness and joy, and we get a lot of energy from that. So I would ask any other supplier, you know, look upon yourselves and think about what you can do to bring some happiness. And in terms of moving forwards, we have sponsored the Springboard Health and Wellness Award, and so a date for everyone's diary, the 8th of January. So please share that with your people. Anyone can put themselves forward or put forward a colleague. So please get involved in that. And for next year, we are sponsoring Nutrition and Hydration Week, which is week commencing the 13th of March. And we're planning to do some nice activities around that. And we all know that nutrition and hydration really helps your mental well-being. So look forward to that as well.
That's great. Thank you very much, Lisa. We had a question come in about how do we reach out to, and this was specifically about school caterers, small in-house operations, possibly rural schools. But I guess you could sort of expand that to anyone who's working perhaps remotely. How do we support them? How do we get in touch with them? How do we know how they're feeling? And Elbha, I know you mentioned that, for instance, not everyone has an email address, so the communication isn't necessarily as straightforward as you might think. How are you tackling that problem with Aramark?
Yeah, so I mean, as I said, it was one of our biggest problems to solve, and it's still ongoing. But it was the creation of that web link. So you know that there was no passwords, there's nothing behind it. Literally, it's just a click in and you're there. So I think nowadays, I think everybody has access to Wi-Fi and 4G. You know, we had to reach, you know, offshore in the North Sea. Like we had to get this message out to everywhere, and that was the best means to do that. But then we can't underestimate the power of a phone call, you know, and still the printed word, not great from a sustainability point of view. But if you are creating newsletters and blogs, you know, and these are the remote areas, and maybe some of your team or your staff aren't comfortable with technology, which is something that we have come across as well. You know, let's get that information out to them, even if it is via the post, or even if it is just picking up the phone and linking in with your team member. How are you doing? This is what we're doing. You know, do you want to get involved, and kind of taking them through the steps to get involved with that. So you know, even just through WhatsApp, that's how some of our team members got that web link out to their team. They created their own WhatsApp groups, and that's worked really, really well. And one of the questions in our survey currently going on now is how people want to be communicated, and what else we need in the business to help support them. So I'll hopefully have more data on that for you next year.
Okay, thank you. Sandra, you are obviously involved in training, where I'm assuming the bulk of what you're doing is sort of skills related to the industry. But is there actually training for people who work within the industry to help them to be able to play a role as within their companies to support people in terms of mental health? Is there anything like that that's available?
Yeah, so I myself undertook a course during the lockdown to become a mental health first aider, and it was something that the organisation, Workforce Development Trust, who is our umbrella organisation, invested in for a number of people internally. What it did for me on a personal level is it made me a much more open leader. I've always taken pride in having, you know, good leadership skills, but what this did for me is it made me much more empathetic. as an individual. I'm the type of person that will write an email and then go back and ask, how are you? What's going on? And it's not that I don't care, it's just that I don't express it in that way. I'm much more focused on getting to the point. So I had to unlearn some unhelpful behaviour and to relearn some helpful behaviour, which is exactly what I've done. Empathy is the action of understanding and being aware of and sensitive to feelings and thoughts and experiences in others. And I think if you can nail that now, as an emerging manager and as an emerging leader, it will drive the right conversations with your people. There are many different ways to increase your capabilities in these areas. But what I would say to, come to our website and have a look and see some of the things that we can offer. But as an individual, you've got to have huge self-awareness to know where your starting point is. But leaders and managers of the future have got to be much more empathetic towards the people in their teams, much more understanding.
Okay, thank you for that. Mark, perhaps I can turn to you now. I'm just thinking in terms of making this practical, what is, in your experience, are some of the sort of the practical suggestions you can give to hospitality employers that will help to improve the environment within the workspace?
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, just to pick up on something Sandra said, by chance, I'm rereading a lot that I love. Atticus said, you understand a person until you climb into driving, Sandra. It's about having empathy. It's about trying to understand things from people's perspective. Are you hearing me okay, David? I'm getting a message that I'm a bit unstable.
Yeah, you've stabilised now, but yeah, you were a bit wobbly at the start.
Good, okay. Just agreeing with Sandra, really, that empathy is so important. And I think I would extend that to answering your question to me, that managers need to understand that life isn't always rosy, and the people who seem angry or tired, as I said before, maybe there's a reason for the fact that they're presenting these appearances. And even the people who do seem like they're top of the world, well, maybe they're not. So I think it's about just giving people an opportunity to talk to managers, to peers, to their friends and colleagues. And then that's back to what Elbha was saying. It's about creating platforms and structures in a business or in an organization, so people have somewhere to go. It's a very hard thing to do, to start talking about your own mental health. It's a very personal thing and something that people aren't comfortable with at all. So you have to make it as easy as possible. Maybe that's about having walk-in sessions that people can come to anonymously and chat frankly to people. Maybe it's about having aspects of your intranet where they can reach out and ask for support. Maybe it's taking on an employee assistance program, so people have a hotline, a helpline that they can speak to confidentially and frankly. But it's about giving as many opportunities and moments for people to reach out as possible, because it's a hard thing to do. So people won't do it lightly. So therefore, give them more ways of reaching out for support.
Okay, thank you for that. Elbha, so we just had a question pop up, making the point that obviously COVID-19 has sort of cast a bit of a long shadow over 2020. During the lockdown earlier on in the year, we had reasonably long sort of sunny days, and the suggestion now is that with this sort of second lockdown, it's happened at a time when we're getting darker days. Is this creating more of a problem, and what, if anything, is something that we could do about it?
Yeah, well, I agree. I remember at the start of the pandemic, I remember saying, well, thank God it didn't happen like it happened in Wuhan at Christmas, because you have the Christmas buy-in and then you have the dark nights, and obviously when ours started it was March and the days were getting sunnier and longer. But definitely you've got a couple of things that you're fighting with. We've got people that are affected by seasonal affective disorder, so they really struggle with the dark nights, and that's without the pandemic and with all the uncertainty around it, and whether we'll have Christmas with our families and all of that there. Again, how you can deal with that, it's talking. It really comes down to talking and reaching out, and it doesn't have to be your colleagues, it can your family and friends, and just letting them know that you're not okay. You know, I'm a dietitian is my background, so you know I speak highly to what you can do from a nutrition perspective, that you eat well, you know, eat regularly through the day. You know, I know it's coming up to Christmas, and I'm very guilty of this too, but you know, be careful of the treats. You know, the sugar makes us feel great for 20 minutes, but then we have that deep dive down, and the only way to kind of get that back again is to keep eating the sugary treats, and you know, you could get yourself in a real situation if that continues. But you know, kind of try to eat healthy, eat balanced, do allow yourself some treats, and you know, I would also advocate for exercise. Do it safely. Obviously, I got my morning run this morning, could hardly see where I was going, but I had my high vis on, and you know, try and get out and get that bit of fresh air, and you know, go back to my take 15 message. If you only can get 5 minutes, 5 minutes is better than nothing. And one of the things I started to engage in, and this is purely because my son, he's a toddler, but he's coloring books, this mindful coloring thing, you know, I kind of had dismissed it, and then suddenly I'm there, you know, coloring in, and you can really you can lose yourself in it. And that's just one of the tools that I didn't think would ever work for me, and it does. You know, other people are using their breathing exercises. So there's a lot of stuff out there, and there's a lot of supports, and it is just kind of finding the one that fits for you. And you know, if you can look, for example, Mental Health UK, they have a you know, whole collection of them. You don't have to spend hours on the internet to try and find solutions. There are quite a lot there. So I guess long-winded answer, look after yourself as best you can. Sleep, you know, is obviously is key, but sometimes it's a struggle. So try and eat well, keep the exercise in, keep yourself in some form of a routine, but talk and reach out when you are struggling.
Okay, that's great. That's looking at things from an individual point of view, and it's given us a lot of very good pointers there. We did have a question though that came in that asks if there's one thing that companies could do to help their employees, what would it be? And I'd like to go to each of you in turn, just to sort of come up with a suggestion that you think that companies, businesses working within hospitality could do. What would be the sort of number one priority? So, Sandra, what would you say would be the number one?
People are your greatest assets, you know, and invest your time and conversations in asking how people are before you start asking them what they're doing, or, you know, how close they are to their targets or their objectives. You know, reverse the conversation. People are your greatest assets. Treat them respectfully, mindfully, and with a lot of empathy and understanding. You'll get so much more out of them.
Okay, thank you for that. Lisa, from the Pladis point of view, what would be the one thing that you would recommend companies to do? Perhaps it's something you do, perhaps it's just a thought you've had.
A couple of things, I think. Within my team, we do have a buddy system. I think that can really help. And like Sandra says, just asking how people are before you ask them, have they done what you needed them to do? Something that Pladis does, we have mental health ambassadors, and we also give line managers mental health and wellbeing training. So those things really help. And you know, there's lots of resources available to do that.
That's great, thank you. Mark, have you got a suggestion?
Yes, I have, and forgive the sales pitch, David, but I would strongly recommend that all employers have an employee assistance program rolled out. We have one, as I said, but others do exist. Come and ask us about ours, or look at another by all means, but they're a fantastic way of offering benefits, counselling and advice to your employee base. And I think the great thing about an employee assistance program is it's about nipping issues in the bud before they become acute. When things become acute, things are often too late. You know, somebody has got a drink problem, they've got a gambling problem, they're not sleeping. So give them the opportunity to have access to guidance, counselling, support, feedback and advice that can help them avoid that pinch point when a problem becomes acute.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. We seem to have lost Mark. He's frozen there. Elbha, do you have?
Very quietly.
do you have a sort of a final thought on what companies could best do?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely agree with everything that's been said, and I think it's creating that safe space that people can go to. They know where it is, and normalizing that conversation around mental health, and that has to be, led from the top down. It has to be a priority going forward, and employees need to know that it is a priority for the business. And as I said way back, it is okay not to be okay, and giving them the tools to say that, and then showing them the supports behind it.
That's terrific. Thank you for everyone for that. I'm afraid that has to be it for today. So my thanks go to Elbha, to Lisa, Sandra, Mark, and to you for joining us. There will be a link to a full recording of this that will be on the Public Sector Catering website next week. Until then, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
We're here today at HRC with Pladis, asking people to open up about their mental health. It's really important that people can start a conversation and that people receiving the conversation are able to listen and say the right things. It's going to be a great day.
I think if you start the day happy, you continue happy, you work safer, better environment for everybody, start the day with a smile on your face, you're going to continue it and leave happy.
We're working long hours under a lot of pressure, and sometimes we forget about we're looking after all the guests, looking after everybody else, and sometimes we forget about looking after ourselves. So we really use a buddy-buddy system. Important to look after your buddy, your mate, your mentor, mentee, the idea of working together to make sure that everybody's looking after each other.
Good morning, Polaris people. It's Peace McGrath here from Meals and More. I just want to thank you so much for your support this year. We support over 220 holiday clubs and 10,000 children. This year has been especially challenging for so many because of COVID. And when I first spoke to Lisa and Charlotte, when I reached out for support, they really got what we were trying to do. So engaged and so helpful.
Next March, Springboard will give recognition to individuals and businesses in the hospitality industry who've gone above and beyond to help their communities, colleagues and staff. Our virtual awards will replace the usual Springboard Awards for Excellence, and new categories have been introduced to pay homage to the special efforts of our industry in 2020. Pladis are a proud sponsor of the Best Health and Wellbeing Awards. This award celebrates success in demonstrating a commitment to employee health and wellbeing. There's never been a more important time to nurture your staff than the challenging period we currently find ourselves in.
Thank you to the team at Pladis for everything you've done for your campaign, Happiness with Every Bite. Our customers in care homes and your support with Napa and the work you're doing with Education for a Springboard are all quite outstanding. Keep up the good work and everybody can enjoy eating far more of your wonderful biscuits. Thank you.